Welcome back to the coverage from YCS Bologna 2024. I'm joined by Tom, and we'll go through what is the meta discussion for this event. Pretty much what we're expecting, what we are gonna bet on going well, and what maybe will be an underdog for the event. But obviously, a lot has happened, and the last time we were here was YCS Lille, where Aldo Plant was again, trying to take yet another event. Yubel was the deck to beat by far, and a few things have changed in these few months. Where do you think actually Yubel stands as of today?
So Yubel, obviously, as you say, the deck to beat. I feel like it's kind of slid down in everyone's estimation a little bit since then. There's been a very powerful new set released, Rage of the Abyss, a lot of powerful cards. Like for some other decks, so obviously the Azamina cards being very powerful in a variety of other decks we can talk about in a little bit, and also that all-important Molchami Fuvalos. What do you think of that card, Marcello?
Yeah, that card is incredible. It's one of those few meta-defining cards for sure. And if there is one of the reasons why, as you mentioned, Yubel popularity, has been lowering, it is also that card. Because usually it forces you to, I guess, tackle it in two different ways. Either you find a deck that doesn't lose too much to it, so that it has some solid engine lines to play around the card, maybe letting your opponent just draw a couple cards and then still end on a decent field. The other strategy is just to go, I kind of like the OCG way, so playing a lot of Ash Blossom and then cross out Call by the Grave, and that's usually how Yubel tries to handle it, but we know how many extra deck monsters the deck tries to bring out, so it is definitely challenging, but you should never disregard the deck. I think it's still very powerful. It's probably arguably still the deck that set up the most threatening field, and so you should still look out for it, but you did mention it already, Azamina cards. So what do we expect from the deck?
Well, I mean, as you say, Yubel still packs a big punch, but the Snake Eye and the Fire King decks are making good use of these Azamina cards, both to sort of extend your engine, get into more parts of the deck, but also to set up an extra negation. So a lot of people thought that the Snake Eye deck lost a little bit when Appaloosa and Baron de Fleur were forbidden, but now we have the new Azamina cards, which can provide a very flexible negation and stop you from getting hit by things with Nibiru or those powerful field breakers. So we did see the two recent YCSs, not from Europe, but both taken by the same player, Landon Oliver, with his Snake Eye Fire King Azamina deck.
Yeah, it was an incredible performance. He has been on a blast. He was also at the World Championship, and he just managed to win back-to-back YCS events with the same deck, which was the Fire King version, actually. There seems to be a bit of a debate, as you've mentioned. While in Lille, the Snake Eye deck was, a little underwhelming, we could say, not really represented. It's back at being among the top decks, but I think a lot even of the pro players have been debating whether Fire King is the superior version, or you just rely on more non-engine and just play, the straight up version, usually Azamina, Fiendsmith. Sometimes we have seen also Fiendsmith card go down because of that Mulcharmi Fuvolos, so it's definitely interesting. Results for now, I've been saying that I guess Fire King is superior, but I don't know, what do you think about it?
Well, it's worth mentioning the Fire King has got a very powerful new tool in the shape of the Volcanics, can get you into some very quick rank 8, so we've seen a lot of fun zombie vampire action. Very fun card. So it's also worth mentioning the Dominus Impulse, a new card that's come out in Rage of the Abyss, a very, very powerful hand trap. Has that same thing as Infinite Impermanence in that it's a trap card, so it doesn't get hit by Triple Tactics Talents or Triple Tactics Thrust.
Yeah.
And as you said, people have been dropping the Snake Eye. Maybe this could be, the Fiendsmith cards, and maybe this could be the reason, right? Because those are all light monsters, and if you use Dominus Impulse, you cannot use any light effects. So maybe that's a good reason to drop those Fiendsmith cards.
Yeah, it's an amazing card. The Dominus Purge was already really strong, but it was just because of the nature of the top decks at the moment tougher to find an inclusion, and Impulse seems just better for most of the decks right now, being reliant on fire, of course. And it has been an insane card. Also, as importantly as you have mentioned, it has a lot of synergy, can play around your opponent cards as well. But across the field, as though you would expect those two decks to be, the top contenders, we have actually had an event in Europe that we did commentary together, which was the UK Open, and surprise, surprise, Tempai actually got it. So Tempai is still there, a force to be reckoned, although it did suffer some hits back from the latest Forbidden Unlimited list. It's still there.
Oh yeah, Tempai is definitely not a deck to discount. A lot of players love the deck. It's very easy to pick up and get started with. And these new powerful cards, Molchami Fuvalos and Dominus Impulse, slot perfectly into the deck. So, I mean, one of the things people might be hesitant about choosing to include Fuvalos in your deck is that you can't use it when you go first. But with Tempai, that is not a problem. You're going second every time.
Yeah, and it's really a deck that you need to prepare for. Game one, it's obviously tough because they're gonna get you, but I think if you're not really siding, some threats for it, we have seen a trend of, obviously Dimensional Barrier, of trap cards being paired with maybe Trust because of, nowadays they are maining Shifter, Purulia, and Fuwalos, so you have at least 9 very powerful, end traps that they can use in the draw phase as well to play around talent. So it's nice to have, this backup plan where you actually get a trap to stop them, and you definitely need to prepare for the deck. It has been showing its consistency even at Lille, a lot of events, and it's a force to be reckoned, as well as the UK Open. There has been a recent remote duel YCS, which was also won by Tempai, so it's definitely a deck we should always keep on our radars. But Rage of the Abyss did not bring only, new friends. I'm absolutely stoked that it bring back also some old fellows, in particular Mermail. It's probably among the top 1, top 2 decks, my favorite decks of all time, and I'm really excited to see it back in action. It's so fun to witness, I think.
Mermail is one of the most explosive combo decks we've seen in a while. You start with that Neptibus, the Atlantean Prince, and your opponent doesn't have anything to stop you. You're going to be having a lot of fun. We're going to be seeing toads flying everywhere. We're going to be seeing Mulan Glacier discard cards from people's hands. I'll be really excited if we see that on stream. It's one of these extremely, just absolutely insane combo decks. Has a lot of different options, and yeah, I'm hyped for it.
Absolutely, and spoilers, I might have heard that some familiar face is actually bringing the deck to this event, so hopefully we will get actually to show you guys on day one some of the action, but we also should not forget that we are in Bologna. And last time we were here, we witnessed Joshua Smith taking the event with a deck that nobody was expecting at the time. Obviously Runic, it has to be, with Josh lately, but he paired it with Bestials. And although it has been almost a year ever since, we have a very similar deck that is still threatening out there, and I'm talking about the White Forest Runic version of the deck, which just won the last weekend the WCQ Regional in Rome with Vincenzo Rofino, so also former YCS champion, and yeah, I'm expecting it. He's most likely gonna bring the deck, and it's again very similar in the way that he plays with Synchros and plays with Runics, just like the Naturia deck did back in the day, then the Bestials, and now this seems like it's the latest trend. And I think Runic decks are always scary if you're not prepared, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of players love the Runic decks. It's so flexible. It gives you all of this almost like non-engine, but that it is engine as well. So all of the Runic cards, you can destroy your opponent's spells and traps, you can negate monster effects, it can help you break fields going second. And we're seeing it, as you say, it's gone through a lot of iterations. It started out with the Naturia cards, and then the Bestials, and now the White Forest. So maybe in the future, we'll see a combination of some different archetypes, or for now though, White Forest Runic. I'm also interested to see some players using the White Forest Azamina sort of combination. Azamina cards mostly seeing play at the moment as a sort of side engine to Snake Eye and Fire King decks, but it can stand up by themselves or with the White Forest cards.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have mentioned how, for example, lining up against Tempai, drop cards, I've seen, a trend back in Yu-Gi-Oh! And just the White Forest combo off so well, you can get to recycle your either continuous trap, but also, you have seen Darumas in the main deck and, all of this, and I'm down for it. I mean, we're pretty old, Tom, so we always enjoy to see some trap cards out there, and obviously the trap deck by definition is Labyrinth, which had a pretty solid show at YCS Niagara Falls, going all the way up to top 4, and again, it's one of those decks you should never take out of the equation, pun intended, maybe. So yeah, we are done for some math, right?
Yeah, I mean, this deck, much like the Tempai deck, it got a real boost from the Fuvalos and the Impulse. Impulse being a very powerful trap, Labyrinth love traps, it can arguably use it better than any other deck, and the Fuvalos Again, good for Labyrinth because Labyrinth doesn't really care.
Exactly.
So if there's going to be a very powerful non-engine card that's introduced, a lot of decks are playing it, and you just like, okay, you play that against me, I don't mind, then that's going to be great for Labyrinth. Downside being for Labyrinth, though, obviously the Impulse does negate all of those very important Labyrinth traps.
Yeah.
And I think the Ash Blossom has definitely been on the rise, in part because of the Molchami Fuvalos, and again, another dangerous card for Labyrinth, one of those cards you really don't want to see. On the other hand, a deck that was like just new pretty much this time last year, YCS Bologna 2023, was Centurion, and that's been creeping back up into the metagame. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. It's again going back to the Molchami Full Walls discussion. We have mentioned that you can take two different approaches, and for Centurion, the main reason is that it can totally ignore the card and just set up in a way where you just put your Centurions in your spell and traps, and then you can play during your opponent turn, and so it's not really effective against you. And at the same time, you can still set up some threatening fields thanks to the latest supports. And yeah, it's a solid deck. Obviously, it's kind of a risky choice in my opinion. For the opposite reason that you would expect, because it's probably the safest choice, and that's something that when you come to such an event, I think obviously you're expecting to play a lot of rounds, and you need your deck to be very consistent, and I think Centurion provides that, but I think we both know that sometimes you need your deck to do unfair things, and those free wins do matter, because sometimes you're gonna play against a obviously very good players, and you cannot always expect to outplay them. And I think Centurion maybe is lacking a little bit in that side, where a lot of your ends are gonna be similar, but sometimes it's lacking that, okay, I'm just gonna use Shifter, or I'm just gonna do some unfair combo and just completely get your opponent out of the game. But it has been performing pretty well, and I guess still instead on the trend of decks having a resurgence. We have seen at the European Championship already a huge show from Ritual Beast, and it's again one of those decks that is up there and you should expect this weekend. So
yeah, I mean, speaking of decks that can use Dimensional Shifter, it's got to be
Yes.
Ritual Beast, right? So any deck that can use Dimensional Shifter should be using Dimensional Shifter, and it gets an absolutely massive boost. There are some decks like Tempai which use the Dimensional Shifter, and it doesn't hurt them so much. It can be a little bit annoying, but Ritual Beast just don't really care at all. They're more than happy for their cards to be banished because they can return them to the graveyard anyway with the Ulticana Hawk. So it can do quite a lot, can do a lot of powerful combos. We're seeing a lot more players make use of that Ulti-Gaia Pelio, a very, very powerful extra deck monster that can negate any number of cards as long as you've got Ritual Beast monsters in your hand to do so, as well as the Protoss. What do you like? Do you like the Protoss?
yeah, I mean, it's one of the main reasons why the deck is doing so well, and I think a good news for all of our Ritual Beast duelists is also the latest Quarter Century Bonanza, because we have had a lot of nostalgia reprints, mainly focused at our Time Wizard tournaments, but some cards that are really important nowadays, such as the Protoss. Now you can just upgrade your deck with an even shinier version of the cards, and yeah, I think we are gonna expect a lot of those cards to be in the decks, and yeah, it's just a force to be reckoned. The card is so flexible. If especially like the thing I like about it is that it's a very safe card overall, but it gets better the more information you know. So it's one of those cards. Sometimes you have those cards that once you get to the top cut, or when information is available, they can get worse. Protoss just gets better because you can get into your line and just know what your opponent is doing and call a different effect, so lock your opponent out of whatever they want to do. And yeah, it's definitely strong. But I think overall what we can expect once again from Bologna is a very diverse field, a lot of different decks. I would be shocked if similarly to Lille we are not looking at least 10 different decks in top cut, and so it just again proves to you that at the moment you can play whatever you want. Just have fun with whatever strategy. There is a way to obviously study the field, but at the end of the day we are expecting 2,000 plus players, and you're gonna play a lot of different decks. So I guess we can just end it with what is going to be our prediction, though, Tom. So what do you think is the deck that will take it all down?
We're still in Europe, so I'm still going to say Plants. Just our
okay.
last YCS, they got to the
Respect.
finals, so this time, all the way.
Respect, okay. And then I'm gonna follow it up with just Bologna being a back-to-back Runic win, and just White Forest Runic. Let's see if I'm gonna jinx it for you, Vincenzo. But thank you guys for watching, and obviously keep staying tuned, and we'll see what the decks brings from YCS Bologna 2024. Thanks.